Want to pull that? You want to come up here closer? I can pull the table up with you.
I'll call the meeting to order. It's at 5 o'clock. And this is the October 17th regular meeting of the Tainter Lake Rehabilitation District. Let the minutes show that the members, the Commissioner Pysick and Porter are not here. Everybody else is.
Put your mic down a little.
Is that better? I've never been quiet, but so with that in mind, we have the approval of the agenda and the regular minutes, regular meeting minutes that Tom sent out. Tom also sent out minutes from the Boating and Safety Committee. And you want to read those dates off, Tom?
Sure. I sent them out the other day. The other agendas or minutes that need approval are February 7th, March 6th, April 14th, April 24th, May 15th, June 5th. And Bob, if you could get me those from last week, if I can get them in for next month, that would be great. So those are the ones that need approval.
I need a motion to approve the agenda, the regular minutes, and all of the minutes that Tom has supplied and indicated.
So moved.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes that I listed.
In a second?
I guess I'll be second then.
All right, Jeff.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Tonight, our educational speaker is Dan Zier, who is the chairperson of the Red Cedar Water Quality Partnership. He facilitates these meetings. The group has a 10-year water quality improvement plan titled "The River Runs Through Us." I know that I've sent it out at least once, if not twice, to everybody. And this group is made up of various groups, everything from agronomy specialists, farm-led groups, lake districts, lake associations. Dan can kind of go into more DNR people, City of Menominee people, and it's just a good group. Last week, we had a meeting, and I think it was probably one of the best meetings I attended in the 2 years that we've been going. I invited Dan to speak at this group because I want to highlight the fact that we're, number one, we're not the only ones doing something, and number two, we're not doing it alone. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan, and Dan, you can give a little more detail than I can.
The mic works.
Yes.
There we go. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for having me. Yeah, and really, I brought a hard copy of the plan in case anybody wants to page through it. I do need that back, so don't walk away with it, but yeah, so probably the main reason why I asked Al and Tom if I could come talk to you folks is that this plan has been in place since 2016. We wrote it in 2015, approved by DNR and EPA in 2016, so that was the official start year. And it's a 10-year plan. It's called a 9 key element plan. Basically, DNR and EPA, if you want to qualify for the grants that they have for watershed work, you pretty much need a 9 key element plan. And there's 9 bullet points that EPA and DNR want you to meet in that plan. And if they think you've met those bullet points, then they will approve the plan. and you're then eligible to get grants. You can get some grants without that, but really in a scoring system where those grant programs are always overprescribed, they have more applications than they have money. You're going to score up there in the money realm if you have a 9 key element plan. So when the total maximum daily load, the TMDL, was written for the Tainter Lake system and basically the whole Red Cedar system, when that was written in 2012, several of us got together at that time, predecessors of some of the people that are in the partnership at this time, Dan Prestabach, who was the land conservation director in the county at that time, Bob Heisey, who was the land conservation director over in St. Croix County, my former boss from Madison, Ken Jensko with Extension. We had some DNR folks at the table. At that time, some people from what at that time was the Tainter Lake Association were at the table, and we just talked about, okay, well, we've got this research document from DNR, the TMDL, the total maximum daily load, which basically said, here's how much phosphorus is coming into the system and causing algae blooms. If you want to cut down on those algae blooms and meet water quality standards, you got to get that phosphorus level down here, and here's how much that is. That's what the TMDL basically told us. And that's described in the plan if you're interested in more details about that. It talks more about the TMDL, and you can go out online to various websites. The county's got it. There's a Red Cedar Watershed website that I administer that's got a copy of the TMDL in it. That's a very technical document, and like I said, it's summarized in the plan that I passed around. So if you want more information about that, basically all of the entities that are kind of responsible for trying to decrease those phosphorus loads coming into the watershed and decrease the frequency of algae blooms, all got together and formed this partnership. And I want to talk a little bit about that. But really, the overarching theme here is this plan is going to expire at the end of 2026. So we are in the process of starting to talk about the update for the plan. We don't have to completely rewrite that plan, but we have to update it and say, here's what we learned after 10 years. Here's what we're going to do different. And really, I want to talk about that a little bit with you folks and kind of give you some information and maybe get some feedback for you. So, yeah, so I am a regional natural resource educator with UW Extension. There's about 12 of me around the state. Some of us are focused more on forestry, kind of some of the people farther up north, and the rest of us are water quality educators. I'm a water quality educator, and I'm based in Eau Claire, but I work in probably about 10 counties from Eau Claire, Clark County sometimes too, from Clark County basically over to the St. Croix is kind of the area that I cover. So, working? We're not working. I'm trying either one. Nothing's happening.
Pointed towards.
Yeah, we're trying.
Is it your computer that it's?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just too far away.
Should be this one. That's 5 range. Worst case, I will advance it to the next one.
There we go. Yeah, so you've probably all seen this map. Is it working? Okay. You've probably all seen this map at one time or another. So this is the Red Cedar watershed. And the little red pointer on here, yeah. The little red lines indicate the sub watersheds. So for instance, so this is all the Red Cedar. Everything in here is finding its way to the Red Cedar River eventually, and then finding its way down to the Chippewa. But you've got like 18 Mile Creek over here. So this is this little red area here is the watershed for 18 Mile Creek. Above that, there's Trout Creek, and they're all flowing eventually into that one point down there where they drop into the Chippewa. So just a little, what is a watershed? A natural area whose border includes all the water bodies that eventually drain to one point. And in this case, it's the Chippewa River. And you can, watersheds are nested within each other. So we've got these little watersheds in there. And then, of course, the Red Cedar is part of the Chippewa River watershed, which is much bigger, goes all the way up to, almost all the way up to the UP. And that's the Chippewa River watershed, big, huge chunk of Wisconsin. And the Chippewa River then flows into the Mississippi, and of course, you all know the Mississippi is a large proportion of the country and drains into the Gulf of Mexico. So this is our contribution to the Gulf of Mexico. All this eventually finds its way down into that dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico, where we send so many nutrients and so many pollutants that nothing can live in an area about the size of the state of Massachusetts, depending on what year it is and what the weather's been like. So we are sending stuff downstream, and what I really like people to think about is, we've drawn all these artificial borders, right? Menominee's got a city border. Dunn County's got a county border. These are arbitrarily drawn using, a grid system. This is a natural boundary, and I like people to kind of try to identify themselves as this being their community. And there actually are countries, New Zealand comes to mind. New Zealand's political boundaries are their watershed boundaries, because it's an island nation. They have to be really conscious of their environmental resources, their natural resources. So their political boundaries are watershed boundaries. There's some other countries that do that as well. So think about this as your community. And, if you're here, whatever's going on up here is affecting you, right? And if you're here, whatever is going on down here, you're affecting, right? Because everybody downstream from you is going to have to deal with what you're doing, and you're going to have to deal with what everybody upstream of you is doing. So try to think of that as a community, and really that's really trying to build that thought process, because this is a shared resource. This watershed, this river, all of the natural resources within this watershed, it's a shared resource that we all need to take care of. 1,900 square miles, includes parts of 9 counties. This is a big chunk of the state. Same border, watershed map. This is just land cover, so just kind of giving you an idea of the diversity. Basically, if you're up here, you're kind of in the Northwoods. That's pretty much a Northwoods environment up there in Washburn and Sawyer County. A lot of water, a lot of forest, a lot of wetlands. And then you get down here below Long Lake and down below Rice Lake and stuff, and then it's all the yellow and orange is all yellow is cropland, orange is pasture land. So we're talking about, it's kind of hard to see the numbers up there, but about 45% of this watershed is agricultural land. And that's a big chunk of land to deal with. That's a lot of possible runoff issues. So if we want to do anything about the runoff issues, we have to deal with the agricultural land, because it is so much. And forest land, you can do some things to manage it and manage it better for water quality, but generally forests are pretty good at soaking up water and not producing a lot of runoff. So our runoff primarily is going to come from ag land and from urban areas, and people that live around the lakes and people that live in towns where they're producing a lot of runoff from pavement and other such things. So let's talk a little bit about the partnership. Kind of already mentioned it. Al mentioned it as well. We started in 2013, about a year after that total maximum daily load, the TMDL, was written by DNR. We started meeting in 2013. So we've been going at it for 11 years. This organization, the partnership, has been together for 11 years. And this is kind of a lot of text, but I just want to read this to you. This is what the partnership itself, we came up with this. Nobody wrote this. We all as a group kind of put this together. The Red Cedar River Water Quality Partnership is a civic organizing entity that works for the common good of water quality within the Red Cedar Basin through the practice of civic governance, whereby the partners develop the civic imagination and organize the civic infrastructure needed to produce sustainable water quality while coordinating the implementation of water quality strategies for the basin. It's a lot of words, but basically what it means is this group of stakeholders that got together is attempting to empower everybody within that group and all of the little hubs that we touch to be a government, right? You can make decisions. You can influence decisions. You can direct resources. Even, you guys have the advantage of, you actually have money. You're a government entity yourself and have funds coming in that you're allowed to direct the way you want. But as a partnership, what we can do is we can apply influence to different things. We can share information, maybe find somebody out there that's doing something that doesn't know that somebody else is doing that, get them together, shared resources, helping somebody who maybe can't get a grant. Okay, you can't get that grant, but I can, so I'll write the grant and we'll all share it and we'll use it, that kind of stuff. Shared resources, building that civic governance, that civic entity that's connected to the people that are going to make decisions that affect the water quality and affect the land management in this watershed. This is just a list of the partners. So we've got 4 land conservation departments, including Dunn County here. Chase Cummings is a regular member of the partnership. Tyler up in Barron County, Linda in Chippewa County, Nick Stadnick in Russ County. The Farmers of Barron County Watersheds is a farmer-led watershed group. How many of you are familiar with farmer-led watershed groups? A couple of you. Okay, so there's a program under DATCAP, under the State Department of Agriculture, that was established maybe about 10 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago, I think. And that program it's a grant program. There's a big chunk of money. And if you're a farmer and you organize with, I think you have to have at least 5 other farmers that are kind of all in the general geographic proximity of each other, preferably in one watershed, one smaller watershed. And you organize and you get a cooperating entity. That cooperating entity is usually the Land Conservation Department, although the Farmers of Barron County Watersheds, their cooperating entity is Farm Bureau in Barron County. So that entity will help you with things like administrative stuff, kind of tie you into the government system a little bit. But so you're a group of farmers, you get together, you get licensed as a producer-led watershed group through DATCAP, and you apply for a grant from DATCAP. They've got almost $1 million, and there's an increasing number of these groups. It used to be you could get up to $40,000. Nobody gets $40,000 anymore because there's too many of the groups. We're hoping one of the things that we want to do is get that program established with some more funds, because these farmer-led groups are very effective. And one of the things that their principal purpose, the principal purpose of this grant program, is to get them to put practices on the ground that are conservation practices that keep soil and water in place. So it's a water quality and soil health program that DATCAP has established. Actually, the legislature established it, set up the funds. But the watersheds in this part of the state were pilots. Extension, we and DNR set up the pilot program that originally started these watershed groups. We got 4 in this neighborhood, and they were so successful. Some people connected with them, put some pressure on the legislature and said, hey, this is a really great program for farmers. And the legislature, back when Scott Walker was still governor, said, good idea. We'll give some money to DATCAP to fund this program. And it started off with just $250,000, and they've been upping it. It's up to $1 million now, but we'd like to see it even higher, because I think this last grant cycle, I think there were 12 new groups. There's already like 30 some, and I think there were 12 new ones applying for grant money. So the pot of money is getting smaller because there are more groups applying for it. So anyway, that's the Farmers of Barron County group. And then we have, they're not on this list, but they are represented by Farmers Union, which is down here. Farmers Union represents 3 other groups, or I should say 2 other groups within Dunn County. Actually, they kind of straddle one of them kind of straddles the boundary with Barron County. But the Red Cedar farmer-led group and the Hay River farmer-led group. So we've got those 2, and then the Farmers of Barron County. So we've got 3 farmer-led groups in this watershed. DNR, of course, is a member. NRCS is the Natural Resource Conservation Service. They are the farm agency within the U.S. Department of Agriculture that has cost share money, lots and lots of cost share money, and they got a whole bunch more in the Inflation Reduction Act when that was passed a couple of years ago. So NRCS is rich with funding right now, as opposed to a lot of agencies that are struggling. They got a big chunk of money from the Inflation Reduction Act for cost share. Farmers can sign up. If you plant cover crops, you get, I don't know what the rate is, $30 an acre to help you cover the costs of that. So those are the kinds of programs that NRCS has. And NRCS is a member of the partnership as well. John Sipple, some of you might know John. John within Dunn County is part of that group. City of Menominee, basically the Public Works Department, Randy Idy, many of you might know Randy, started off with us. Randy has since retired. Megan Hines is now the representative from the city on the partnership. 3M, a little bit less involved than they used to be. They have about 250 acres around the plant that they used to rent out for farming. And when they found out what we were doing through some connections that we made, they decided that all of their contracts, it was Five Star Dairy was the farmer that they were working with. They decided that those contracts would all have to have cover crops and no-till and permanent vegetation within the contract. So the farmer would be doing those practices along with, standard raising of corn and soybeans. That has changed. 3M has decided not to rent that land out for farming anymore. So if any of you have been around the 3M plant, that land is being ceded to natural vegetation. Most of it is. Some of it is up for sale, I know. I think some of it they want to convert into a larger parking lot. I'm not sure. But the majority of the land that used to be rented out for farming around 3M is now in permanent vegetation, which is great. That's what we want to see. Permanent vegetation, prairie, or natural forest is much better for runoff and for water quality than farmland is. Landmark Conservancy, the land conservancy organization that covers pretty much all of Northwest and a big chunk of northern Wisconsin. So they're a land trust organization that helps people put their land into an easement if they want it to stay natural for the rest of its existence, those kinds of things. Landmark is part of the group as well. UW Stout, very important partner. They've done a lot of research through their Lakes REU program, Research Education for Undergrads program. They've had that going with grants from the National Science Foundation for the last 9 years, where every summer they bring in students from all over the country. College students apply for that program from all over the country. They come to town. They work with faculty at Stout to do scientific research, sociological research, interviewing people and doing surveys. There's been some geological research done on the river and the riverbed. All of that through students that have come through that Lakes REU program. Very valuable. I don't know if any of you have ever gone to the reception. Every year they have a reception at the Raw Deal where those students present their results, usually in August before they leave town after the summer. If you haven't gone to that, go. It's worth it to see what those students have done, to talk to them. It's a really great enriching experience for the students. There was one year I was there at the Raw Deal, and over in the corner there was like a couple of the students were over there, and they were sobbing, and they said, "We have to catch a flight right after this. I'm not going to see these people ever again. This has been the greatest summer of my life." It was just, they had a great time. They learned a lot. We've got pictures of a young African American woman from Philadelphia, grew up in the urban environment of Philadelphia, out riding a tractor. First time she'd ever been on a farm and been on a tractor. So all kinds of cool stuff happens with that program. And Stout is doing all kinds of other things too in terms of water quality research and connected activities. Oops, let's go back. Of course, there's you guys right there. We also have some other organizations, the DeSere Lake Association, not quite as active because Rod Olson, who was their president, passed away a couple years ago. Rod was very instrumental in getting people at the northern edge of the watershed more involved in what's going on down here, but they are still represented on the partnership. Red Cedar Lakes Association, the Chetek Lakes Association, Farmers Union, as I mentioned, they represent. Of course, their members, the Farmers Union members, but also those other two farmer-led groups that I talked about within Dunn County. And Tara Greeman is the person from Farmers Union that comes to the meetings, and Tara is awesome. She came on board a couple years ago and makes me feel even older than I already do because she's got so much energy and she does so many things and is so connected and always immediately responding to emails like that. And yeah, great to have her on board. And Extension, that's not just me. Kelsey Highland, who is a regional extension person with the Ag and Water Quality Program, she does more on-farm research with farmers. She's part of the partnership as well. again, fairly new, just in the last couple of years, and Kelsey, again, very young, very energetic, doing all kinds of really cool stuff. So that's basically kind of the makeup of the partnership. So as I said, one of the major roles of the partnership is to implement the water quality strategy for the Red Cedar River watershed. There's a picture of the cover, and I don't, it's floating around somewhere. So if you folks want to glance at that.
To you, buddy.
And as I said, it's also out online. Just look up Red Cedar Water Quality Plan, and it's out there. I know the county's got it on their website, and several other entities do as well. So as I said, a 10-year plan going to expire at the end of 2026. The plan defines the water quality issues in the watershed, proposes solutions, maps out how those solutions will be implemented. As I said, we are in the process of updating that plan. Solutions include some of the things I've been talking about: promotion of and growth of soil health and regenerative agriculture practices, such as cover crops. Everybody know what cover crops are? Cover crops are, so the farmer is going to plant corn in the spring, right? When the corn gets to be, I don't know, maybe a foot or two high, they will go in midsummer or late summer and plant like ryegrass or clover or something else. It kind of stays small because the corn is kind of shading it. But then when they take the corn off in the fall, all of a sudden you got these little plants there that still have a little bit of growing season left to grow, and they are there anchoring that soil down. They're if you look in nature, there's no bare soil in nature. And if it is bare, it's not going to stay bare very long. In agriculture, oftentimes there is bare soil, and that's what leads to erosion, soil loss, which is not good for the farmer, and water quality is definitely affected when that soil rolls off into streams and lakes. So cover crops are there to keep something green on the surface of the soil all year long, and they replenish the nutrients that are in the soil, keep that nitrogen cycle and everything else flowing after the crops have been taken off. No-till is listed up there. No-till is just a process of growing crops without tilling the soil up. So the traditional way of growing crops is, you till the crap out of the soil in the spring, so there's, nothing but black soil out there to plant into. And then in the fall, after you pull your crops off there, you till it up again. No-till is just leaving that soil alone, not disturbing it, because every time you disturb that soil, you kill everything that's in that soil, right? There's within that foot or so that they're going to till up, there are more living organisms in a teaspoonful of soil than there are stars in the sky. I mean, it's incredible the number of microscopic organisms that are in soil that are doing stuff. And when you turn that soil over and expose it to the air and expose it to the sun, you kill a lot of those critters. So no-till is good for maintaining the biological integrity of the soil, the chemical integrity of the soil. Helps the farmers not have to put so many chemicals on for fertilizer and also for bug control, because that little community there is balancing itself, right? This is killing that. This is eating this. If you till it up and plant corn, there's very few organisms in there. But if some corn rootworms get into that soil, there's nothing to compete with them. They're going to go to town and eat all the corn. So the farmer has to put some chemicals on to kill those bugs. Well, if you've got a strong biological community already in that soil, you don't have to put those chemicals on to kill the bugs. Grass waterways are just, if you've ever driven by a farm field and you see a little strip of green grass kind of flowing through the farm field, that's just where a natural gully kind of forms, because it might be, the farm field might come like this. A natural little gully will form there. So what the farmer will do is plant some permanent grass in that little gully, so that when the water flows down there, it's not going to form a gully and wash the soil away. It's just going to soak into the grass or form just a little bit of surface runoff that keeps the soil in place. So all those kinds of agricultural practices, managed grazing, grazing very smartly, and it's rotational grazing or managed grazing. Either phrase is correct. Basically having little paddocks that are usually fenced off with portable electric wire. So you put all the cows in this little area for 2 or 3 days, and then you move them over. When they graze it down a little bit, you don't let them graze it down to the ground. It gets down to about that far, then you open up the fence, move them to another paddock, fence that one off, and they're in that paddock and do that same thing with that one. That's managed grazing. That keeps that green on the land all the time. So managed grazing is another agricultural practice that we like to see. And then, things more focused on urban and lake environments, things like rain gardens, making sure your septic systems are working right, if you have a septic system. Urban runoff control, construction sites in urban areas. I don't know if you've ever driven past a construction site in an urban area. What's the first thing they do? They come in and they take out all the trees and churn the soil up, right? Well, what's going to happen there? Same thing that's going to happen on a farm if you take off all the plants and churn the soil up. Water's going to run off, take soil with it, flow right down into the ditch on a farm. In the city, it's going to flow right into the storm sewer, which goes straight out into the lake, right, or into the river. So those urban runoff controls are part of this process as well. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to, you don't have to wait. If something's on your mind right away, just yell something out or raise your hand. And as I mentioned, the process for updating the plan is underway. We just kind of started talking about this earlier this year, and rather than wait until the last minute, the plan doesn't have to be updated until the end of 26. But we want to start this process and get public feedback, which is one of the reasons why I'm here, for how we can do this a little bit better. But we can't do it alone, and that's why I'm here. In December, I'm going to go actually talk to the farmers of Barron County. We're on the list there. They're having a December meeting. I'm going to go up there and kind of pitch them the same kind of stuff that I'm talking to you folks about. But there's nothing that irritates me more than when people walk by something, whatever the problem is. It could be a natural resource issue. It could be something else. But they walk by and they go, "Oh, that's horrible. Somebody should do something about that." And then they walk away. Well, who is somebody here? Somebody is us. Government is not going to fix these problems. I can tell you, after working for several state agencies, I worked for the State Department of Health and Environment in Kansas before I came up here in 2008. Every single government entity that I've been involved with, worked for the U.S. Geological Survey up in North Dakota for a while too, they're all getting budget cuts all the time. They don't get budget increases. They get budget cuts all the time, every year. So prices are going up, their budget is going down. They will have fewer and fewer resources to help do this kind of stuff year after year after year. We can change that. We need to put pressure on our government people to change that and allocate more funds for those agencies that do this kind of work. But right now, that whole, cut government to the bone is still the theme. Everybody thinks that's the thing to do. Well, I can tell you, working in natural resources for my entire career, that ain't helping us. That ain't helping us. It ain't helping me. So if we want to make a difference in this stuff, we need the resources. And to get the resources, we need the government to allocate the resources. And in order for the government to allocate those resources, they have to hear from us. So lobbying is a huge part of what we're going to be talking about as we move forward with this plan. We are, as I said, it's a hub of people who each represent a constituency. So Al and Tom come to the meetings. They represent the district. They represent you folks. Joe Ailes from the Farmers of Barron County comes to the meetings. He represents that farmers group up in Barron County. He comes to the meetings. DNR is at the meeting representing, their agency and what they can do and what kind of resources they have. The lake associations and lake districts beyond you folks are representing their constituencies. So what they learn with the partnership, they take back to their group. I know that Tom and Elle have already talked to you folks about some of the stuff that they've learned there. So we are a hub. We are a hub of information, a hub of learning, a hub of resources, both human and financial. Yeah, it's going to take a team effort, and this is a nice little hub. This partnership is a nice little hub that we've built to kind of communicate that. Partners depend on their constituency or their staff. For instance, like Chase Cummings, his staff, he goes back and talks, well, we talked at the Red Cedar meeting about this. I'm going to assign you to do this job. And, so it goes back to the staff in his case. And other partners, some people come to the meeting and they say, well, they're not sitting at the table here, but I know this group is doing something else and I can work with them. After this meeting is over, I'll call them and see what they're doing and see how they can get involved. So other partners, so on and so forth, all in an effort to help improve water quality in the watershed. And as I said, we need your help. It's a group effort. And this right here, some of you might recognize that in its infant form, that's the rain garden at Lakeside Park in Menominee. 2016, I think we built that. And, just an idea of who was involved. I was there helping plant stuff and kind of, I don't know, getting in the way a lot. I'm trying to remember, Nels Paulson from Stout went and got the plants, went and picked the plants up from a nursery that donated the plants to us. A couple guys from the Lake Association were there, and they, or was it Stout? It was either them or Stout recruited. We had some Boy Scouts, we had some Stout students, and we had some junior high students, I think they were junior high or high school, come out and help us plant all the plants. So definitely a team effort. If it was just left up to the people that were in the partnership, we couldn't have got this done by ourselves, but managed to get a lot of volunteers out there to do it. So that's the kind of thing that, that's a very physical example, on the ground, doing something, planting things, a very physical example of what teamwork is all about. But there are other aspects of teamwork that come into play here. It didn't happen in this. I work with another watershed group over in the Eau Claire River from Eau Claire east out into Clark County, Eau Claire County, a little bit of Chippewa County. The Eau Claire River Watershed Coalition, very similar to the Red Cedar Partnership. One of the things that happened with that partnership was Eau Claire County's Land Conservation Department, pretty well staffed, 5 people. Clark County's Land Conservation Department, one of the, I think at last I knew, Clark County has the most farms per capita of any county in the state, because it's a large county with a lot of little small farms and a very small population. Neilsville is the largest town in all of Clark County. So they have a lot of farms. Their Land Conservation Department, the government entity that deals with farmers on a county level, their Land Conservation Department is 2 people. And we talked about getting some targeted runoff management grants, TRM, we call them TRIM grants, from DNR. We talked about getting some TRIM grants to set up demonstration farms in both Clark and Eau Claire County for that, for the Eau Claire Watershed Coalition. Demo farms are just, you take some land and you experiment on it, and you bring farmers in and you show, well, we experimented with this and here's what happened. So farmers can learn without having to mess with their farm. They can come and see, oh, you tried to plant that stuff? How did it go? Well, here's how it went. The second year it went better, so farmers can learn. It's like a little research and education farm field is a demo farm. And we wanted to have some money to compensate farmers to take some of their land and turn it into demo farms. And each county had to get a separate TRIM grant, because the counties can't, if one county gets a grant, they can't give it to another county. So we needed 2 TRIM grants, right? Jim Arch, who was the land conservation director in Clark County at that time, he said, I can't do this. That's filling out TRIM grant paperwork's about that thick. He said, I don't have time. I don't have the staff to administer this. I can't do it. Greg Leonard was the land conservation department head in Eau Claire County at that time. And Greg said, because they were sitting at that table together and because we were working as a partnership, Greg said, as an employee of Eau Claire County, he said, I tell you what, Jim, I'll write your grant for you. He said, basically, we're doing the same thing in both counties. So a lot of the background information is going to be the same. You just need to plug in your budget, the stuff specific to where the farm is going to be, all that kind of stuff. But I'll write all the background information and get all the other research that needs to go into it. Will that be enough for you to be able to administer the grant and work with the farmer? And Jim said, yeah. So without that partnership, without those guys sitting at the table and trusting each other and learning from each other and helping each other out, that wouldn't have happened. So those kinds of things happen with the Red Cedar Partnership too all the time, where I hate Zoom meetings. Oh my God. I hate Zoom meetings. And sometimes, when it's snowing outside and it's the middle of January, you really don't have much of a choice. But when you get people in the room together and they're talking to each other, okay, well, let's take a break. You take a break and all of a sudden conversations are starting here and here. These people are talking about, oh, I didn't know you were doing that. I need to hook up with you later. We can talk about that. And then when the meeting's over, same kind of thing happens. I think at the last Red Cedar meeting, I left and there were still 4 or 5 conversations going between some of the people that were there. So this is all about building trust, sharing resources, learning from each other, and all the other things that go with a partnership. So really, I don't know if I want to call it a pitch. It's more of a teaser. I just want to give you folks a heads up that at some point we might be coming back here, and I might have a big flip chart, and I might want a little bit more of your time, and I might be asking you, hey, give us some information. What's on your mind about ways that we can pool resources, things that you folks think you might be able to do as a Lake District? Maybe somebody you know that you might, that's out there that maybe we don't know about that you could work with, or that has some resources. You folks probably know about resources that are out there that I don't. I live in, Clare. I get over here a lot because I work over here a lot, but I don't know all the ins and outs of Menominee or Barron or Rice Lake. So when we have these get-togethers, I know there's people who are hooked up with folks that I'm not hooked up with. So at some point, we will be coming back to talk to you, and when we figure out, exactly how we want to do more of a public participation element of this plan revision, and just kind of ask you for some input. Yeah. So I think that's about all I had. I guess I made a little over a half hour, didn't I, Al? Sorry about that.
I say a half hour knowing it's gonna go 40 minutes.
Yeah, you can't give me a mic without me not shutting up for an hour. So.
Educated, you know. Questions?
Yeah.
How is that organized? Is there like a president? Is there a board?
I'm the facilitator of the group. We are not a 501c3. We've talked about doing that, but the advantages and disadvantages are a little bit fuzzy. There isn't much of anything that we've wanted to do that we have not been able to do. Tracking down resources with the people that are at the table. So I mean, I'm the facilitator, quote unquote. I kind of call myself an orchestra director with that group because I know what the piece of music is supposed to look like. It's the plan. You can consider the plan the piece of music. Everybody at that table knows their instrument. They know how to play their trombone or their cello or whatever it happens to be. I'm just there to get everybody to play together nice, stay on the beat, and make the song sound like it's supposed to sound. So I guess I don't consider myself the chairman or anything. I'm the facilitator. I kind of keep everybody on the same page and organize the meetings and write up the minutes and do all that kind of stuff. But we don't have any formal bylaws. It's more, there is a page, if the plan is still floating around, and you can find it online too. There's a page toward the back of that plan that is really the foundation. I think we call it the foundational document or our governance document. And that really kind of lays out, there's some ground rules on there. Hey, if you're going to be at the table, we're going to expect you to work. You bring your personal resources or your financial resources to the table. You're also going to respect everybody else that's at the table. If you don't, you're out. And you're going to respect the facilitator. It's my job to kind of keep people on time and make sure that we're not wasting our time, talking about an issue that somebody's got a beef about that takes up the whole meeting. So we've got some ground rules and stuff like that, but we are not a formal organization in that regard. Yeah.
Is it okay for like somebody like me who's a non-farmer to go to some of these farmers meeting like the Red Cedar and the Hay River, or will I be out of place?
Well, if you're going to do that, I would check with, like if you're going to go to the Hay River or the Red Cedar group, talk to Chase Cummings.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, their meetings are open meetings, as far as I know. I mean, I go to some of them, but I'm in more of an official capacity. Yeah, I would just check with Chase and he can kind of feel out if that's a cool thing or not. Farmers, they enjoy the company of farmers. When it's some farmers and some other people, their level of trust and comfort is a little bit limited because, and it's justified in some ways. I mean, they feel like they're getting the finger pointed at them a lot. And that's understandable. As I showed you that map, 45 to 50% of this watershed is ag land. So if we're going to make a difference in water quality, something has to change on the ag land. I mean, it's not that we're pointing our fingers and saying farmers aren't bad. It's just that the ag land is a main concern because that's where we can make the biggest dent in what's going on. So communicating that to farmers that we're there, and a lot of these soil health practices that I put up there, they're not just about water quality. Putting cover crops on your field is good for your soil. It keeps your soil more fertile. It keeps your soil in place. No-till saves you a lot of money. If you're not out there dragging a disc through the farm field, every spring and every fall, you're saving a hell of a lot of gas, a hell of a lot of diesel. So these things save the farmers money as well. And that's really what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out where's the crossover on the practices that help water quality and that also help the farmer. And if we can get the farmer to do those, it's a bonus for everybody. So, yeah, they are, you have to approach them carefully. And I don't like to talk about them like a them, but it is different talking to folks who live on a lake versus talking to farmers, versus talking to people who are not connected with either and trying to educate them about this kind of stuff. So yeah, be careful.
Yeah, there was a
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. Presentation, it looks like.
Yep.
Talk about what it does enter the river system, like aquatic plants and river basin.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole slew of things that can be done. We tend to look at anything growing in a riverbed or a lake bed as bad, but there are good plants that are there that can help filter water. Wetlands are incredible value for water quality. Wetlands soak up a lot of nutrients. Water that flows through a wetland and then out into a stream or something is going to be a whole lot cleaner than water that flows directly from a farm field into a stream. And the plant community and the animal community in that wetland is very diverse and very important. You'll notice anytime it rains in Iowa over an inch, somebody gets a flood, right? One of the reasons for that is Iowa has lost 99% of their natural wetlands. They have tile drained or filled in 99% of their natural wetlands in Iowa. So everything runs off and you immediately get flooding. Creeks rise really, really fast. In Wisconsin, we've lost about 50% of our wetlands. It's not 99, but it's still a lot. We've lost half of our natural wetlands in this state. So anytime we can do wetland restoration, that's something else that comes into play. But yeah, there are things beyond the farm field that we certainly look at. Lakefront property owners like to have a nice, clean, lakefront that doesn't have anything on it. That's not necessarily a good thing. One of the things, the presentation is off. One of the pictures that I put up there was of what we'd like to see on a lakefront. Natural vegetation along the front, just a narrow path to access the lake itself. But vegetation all along the shoreline in different stages. Aquatic vegetation in the water, natural aquatic vegetation in the water, shoreline wetland plants right on the shoreline. I guess you would call them water-friendly plants, things like blue flag iris and stuff like that. A little bit closer to the shore, a little bit farther from the shoreline, but still close enough to be wet. And then, some shrubs, some taller shrubs, and then trees. All of those things will hold the soil in place on your, because if you live next to the lake, right, it's sloping down to the water. So everything that hits your property, if you live next to the lake, is flowing downhill right into the lake. How can we manage that land the best way we know how to keep everything from running off into the lake, whether it be the fertilizer you're using, Maybe you don't have to use fertilizer if you live next to the lake. That would be a good thing. Or just the dead leaves or the grass clippings or whatever else might flow downhill and flow into the lake. So all of those things are important as well. But that aquatic, that water line where your property meets the lake should be as natural as you can make it. Because that's going to be good for water quality. It's going to be good for keeping your shoreline from eroding. You know, people put riprap up, not necessarily a good thing. Riprap has a lot of deleterious effects that we could go into in another talk. But so yeah, there's a lot of stuff that lakefront folks can do too. And septic systems are important. We did again over in the Eau Claire watershed quite a few years ago. There's 133 properties around Mead Lake, which is up in Clark County on the North Fork or on the South Fork of the Eau Claire River. Mead Lake surveyed all of their septic systems in those 133 properties. 60% of them were failing. And what was really cool is they used a grant to do that survey. They used a grant to survey the septic systems. But after they got that result, the folks stepped up and they fixed their septic systems mostly with their own money. So there's stuff that can be done. Failing septic systems it's like if you've got a feedlot over here with a direct pipe right into the lake. That's what's happening if your septic system is draining poorly into the lake. So those things can be fixed too. Yeah.
Kind of to add to his question and related to sediment, it seems like a lot of good work is going above the ordinary high water mark. And we're getting, especially in our lake, a ton of sediment. And we look at other watersheds that are removing that. And, you know, same with Chase Cummings, when he spoke, he said all of their work goes above the ordinary high water mark, and the county's got 8 people working on this, but it seems to me like it's up to the lake districts and associations that once it's in the water, you guys can handle it. So does this group have a perspective or input on that? Like, once the sediment's in the water, is there an idea or a thought process?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, yeah, once that happens, you know, when you build a flowage lake, you're building something that has a fixed lifespan. You know, you've got this river churning, and you know, water's getting oxygenated. The algae don't get much time to grow very fast, and the sediment keeps moving along. You put a dam up, right? What happens? Everything slows down, the sediment drops out, and eventually, so here's the top of the dam. Eventually, the sediment is going to do this, right? It's eventually going to creep up to the top of that dam, and your lake is done. I mean, every lake has a limited lifespan. Even natural lakes will do that eventually. It's a much longer time frame. But when you put a flowage lake on a river, it's got a limited lifespan. You can stretch that by dredging things out or by building a sand trap. Over in the Eau Claire River again, that is their main problem. All the districts over there spend all of their money on dredging because they have such sandy soil over there that it fills in the lakes very, very quickly. They have dug sand traps at the head of the lake. So where the river's coming into the lake, right before it starts to spread out into the lake, they'll put a sand trap in the river channel, basically just a hole, and the sand will drop out into that hole before it gets into the lake. And then so that costs money to dig that hole, right? And then every year, sometimes depending on the year, they have to do it more than once a year. They go in there with a backhoe and they scoop all that sand out of that sand trap. They also have to have the money to have a spoil site where they put that stuff, right? It's one of the things we just talked about with the Eau Claire Coalition is they're looking for a new one. And FEMA said they couldn't put it where they wanted to put it because it was still within the floodplain. And now we're having a debate about that. We don't think it is in the floodplain, but FEMA thinks it is. So trying to figure out what that is about. But yeah, getting that sediment out it will extend the life of the lake. It will especially extend the life of the upper end of the lake, because that's where it starts shrinking. You guys have probably seen that. The upper end of the lake continually moves, closer and closer to the dam as that sediment drops out when it comes into the lake. But that is a very expensive process. Eau Claire County has a fund, a lake rehabilitation fund that goes to Lake Altoona and Lake Eau Claire to help with that. beyond the district money, and the district uses their money to do that. But the county has a lake rehabilitation fund. Sadly, that is going to shrink considerably. Some of you follow the news when Sacred Heart closed in Eau Claire, the county lost a lot of revenue. So the county's budget right now is going to shrink substantially from what it was. So that's going to take a hit. The lake rehabilitation fund is going to take a hit. But yeah, definitely
Do you know how
can.
much their county contributes right now?
Oh, boy.
A wild guess.
It was pretty substantial. I think there was like $150,000 in that fund. I'm not positive about that. I have to go back and look at my notes, but I know it's gonna shrink from what it was. But yeah, so I mean, those districts raise a lot of district funds, and all of the funds pretty much all of the funding goes to dredging work, because they really have no choice. There's a lot of sand coming into that system. Other things about in-lake stuff, yeah, I mean, there is what we call legacy phosphorus. Once you get phosphorus in the sediments down in the bottom of a lake, that can release into the water column and cause algae blooms, especially in lake turnover. So about this time of year, when so you've got the warm water on the surface of the lake and the cold water down in the bottom all summer, when that warmer water on the surface starts to cool, and it starts to be more equal with the cold water in the bottom, the lake will naturally, the water will turn over. And when that happens, a lot of times phosphorus is released from the bottom sediments. That just happened in Mead Lake a couple weeks ago out in Clark County. It was like one of the first nights that it got down like 38 degrees. It usually has to freeze a couple times before that happens. For some reason, the one cold night that we had in late September, the lake turned over and there was an algae bloom 2 days later. So one of the things that you can do about that is alum treatments. Some of you might have heard of alum. Basically, it's a flocculant that is spread over the lake. It floats down through the water column and settles in the sediment, and it locks that phosphorus down in the sediment. The phosphorus can't get up through it because it binds to it. The aluminum binds to the phosphorus. But the problem with that is if you still got a bunch of phosphorus coming in, what good does it do to, I'm going to put a blanket over this phosphorus, right? But there's a whole bunch more that's going to pile up on top of the blanket. So the first thing you always want to try to do is control whatever phosphorus inputs are coming into the lake. And that's really what the TMDL and the partnership plan is really trying to do, is minimize the amount of phosphorus that's coming into the system. If you can get that down to a certain level, you're always going to get phosphorus coming into a lake from a river. That's just the way nature works. But once you get it down to a certain level where there's not that much coming in, it might be beneficial to talk about an alum treatment. But alum treatments are very expensive. Little Half Moon Lake in Eau Claire, we've been doing alum treatments there for about 10 years. And I don't know the millions that's been spent on that, but it's a lot of money. And sometimes they work real well, and they'll keep that phosphorus locked up for 6-7 years. We had a storm. We did an alum treatment on Half Moon Lake in Eau Claire. Had a bad storm the next year that churned up all the water. Totally defeated what we did. So we had to do it again the next year. So.
Other questions?
If you need to contact me, Dan Zer, look me up on the internet. You can find me. Al's got my contact information. I'm easy to get a hold of.
Any response to?
Yeah. Oh, I try to.
There's a lot of people you can get a hold of. Doesn't mean they'll get back to you.
All right. Thank you all. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you.
Yeah, that didn't make it out to the audience, but if you want a copy of that, like Dan said, just go online and then just, if you Google "a river runs through us," it'll come up right away. And so It's and if you're really interested and you can't find it, send me an email and I'll send you a copy. Okay, Dan, again, thank you for your help and guidance and input. Recognition of visitors and visitor comments.
That would go good.
Don't
No.
have to- Yeah, we don't want to do it tonight.
Just email them
Yep.
to Tom and he'll
Thanks, Bob.
distribute them. Okay, moving on. Commissioner, communication. Does anybody have any communication?
I actually do. Thanks, Jim. Better? Okay. I am kind of in charge of the sedimentation committee. And, since March, we haven't met, and that was by plan. I told the people that were on our committee to take some time off because the sedimentation is due to an erosion problem up the Red Cedar River. And until we get at least a toehold, a place to start, there isn't much that a committee can do. So I have met actually 15 times with agency officials to discuss the erosion in the Red Cedar since March. And I think we may have a starting point. There are two large erosion sites between Tainter and Colfax that are causing a great deal of sediment in our lakes. The plan is to apply for an engineering grant to answer questions like how the problem should be approached and how much it's going to cost. The deadline for the application for this grant is middle of September. So nothing's going to be done on it until after Christmas because the agencies that I will be working with, hopefully, will be very busy until then. And I want to remind people, this is just a plan. The grant, like I said, is not written yet, and there's no guarantees we will get a grant. I'm hopeful though. So that is where the sedimentation committee currently stands.
Tom, a question.
Yes.
Who's going to write the grant and is this owner initiated? Or is this us initiated?
Actually, even though I had been in contact with both of the landowners, the NRCS came to me to do some further investigating. And he wanted to know about grant writing. And when I get back in touch with him, I will let him know that we will gladly help in any way that we can with any technical information or grant writing abilities, et cetera. So hopefully it will be a group project.
And that group being,
The Lake District, the NRCS, and the county.
okay, and the landowner?
The landowner, yes, and the landowners. There are two of them.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Okay. And then you're going to take this stuff to the committee then eventually?
Yes.
And
Yeah, okay.
what
Thank you.
What are you going to bring to us or where are we going to weigh in on?
Well, I think we have some information that we can use to help with the grant writing. We have a couple people in this group that are experienced grant writers.
Mhm.
And I will, the goal is to get a finished grant submitted on time for this year
To the NRCS.
to the NRCS. And the plan is to group the two properties together and do one engineering grant for both of them. And then after that, we will have to go, we will have to write another grant, no doubt, to do the work on these two properties.
Okay. Just for the audience, and I know I'm asking you questions that I know the answers to, but maybe just a 1-minute explanation of why it's important that we are involving runoff that far upstream.
That's a good question. It is both properties, the first one and the largest one is probably 3 miles out of our lake district. The second one is probably 6 miles out of our lake district. So it's really not something that we can control, but it is something that affects our lake district dramatically because the erosion from these two sites form the bulk of the erosion that is coming down the Red Cedar currently and is filling in at the sandbar or the delta of Tainter Lake.
Tom, is one of them off County M?
No,
No, that's
no,
a different.
no, they're both on the river between here and Colfax.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Questions
Others?
from the board?
Have you had much communication with Dunn County on this?
Chase and I have discussed it briefly, but trying to get Chase to sit down right now and work on anything is next to impossible. He's really busy, as I assume most of his counterparts are in similar county positions across the state.
Yeah, budgets are due in November,
Yep.
so,
So
okay, okay, go ahead.
they know that there are discussions to be had, but right now is not the time.
So just to be clear, the sedimentation, there's 3 parts, and this is my simplification of sedimentation. There's 3 parts of the sedimentation. There's where it's coming from, where it falls out, and then how to get rid of it. So the reason why the sedimentation committee is dealing with the first part is if you don't stop the first part, you're going to continually do the second 2 parts. And so, and if anybody's really interested, go to the sedimentation meeting. And then there's all kinds of information. There's a 10-year-old river study that has just a ton of good information down to the metric tons of sediment that are added to the delta in the lake, just like Dan said. I'm not going to see it in my lifetime, but, unchecked, it will continue to move south. And so,
And this is going to be a project that we're going to work on for years, and it's going to be very, very expensive.
right.
That's the good news.
So we're just dipping our toe into this. I don't want anybody going away that we're gonna start changing things tomorrow and costing millions of dollars. We're just dipping our toe in and at least lining up our resources and getting those things started. The other thing is, correct me if I'm wrong, at least one of these was initiated by the landowner.
Yeah.
Kind of in a-
I had contacted the landowner of, both properties, but the first one, I contacted back in January. And I let him know I was going to be working on things and I just didn't get back to him because I didn't have any news to report. He got a hold of the NRCS and he wanted some action. So then the NRCS contacted me and asked me if we wanted to be involved, and I said, yes, absolutely. Um, so, uh, that's the largest one. The next largest one, uh, I have been in contact with a couple times as well, and he would like something done. So,
Well, and the other thing too is just so that everybody's clear, you kind of start at both ends and work to the middle on these things and landowners, while they're willing um, to listen and they understand the need for it, you got to ask yourself, well, what's their motivation to do anything? Especially if it costs them a ton of money. And so, by us reaching out and, by our committee work and Tom's work, we start to provide, at least a pathway for those discussions to begin. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Any questions for Tom? Pete?
National Resource Conservation Service.
Right. They're the ones
The
that you said
feds.
had a lot of money.
For a while, and they have to spend that, I think, in the next 5 years.
Right.
We can spend it.
Okay. Other is that it?
Yes, that's it.
Okay. Other communication? I'm gonna move us along here. No other communication. I have just a little bit. I'm going to send you an invitation that I got from Chase Cummings about Lake Wissota Improvement and Protection Association is having a meeting in November on wake boats and their impact on lakes and potential and other possibilities. I'll forward this to you. If anybody's, I plan on attending.
It's in November?
It's, yeah, I'll send it out to everybody. It's like November 13th,
Okay.
something
14.
like that. And we can carpool to that if you're interested in going. I don't know, we haven't talked about that yet. I don't know if we want the boating and safety committee in on this. I personally think it's bigger than just the Lake Association or Lake District. I think it's a countywide issue, but I like to know exactly what's going on around the state before we start dealing with an issue. So that's why I'm going. I'm not proposing anything yet. I'm just going to understand what's going on. I've heard some things and I want to hear more.
November 13th, 6:30 PM at the Lafayette Town Hall.
There you go.
Go with you.
All right. Anything else? Other than the fact that Dan covered it, but Tom and I did have a Red Cedar Partnership meeting, and it was, like I said before, one of the better ones I talked to. The one thing, there is an agronomist on that group, and he's very knowledgeable about what's going on. And I think it would behoove us to have him as one of our informational speakers, is talking about the spreading of manure from the CAFOs, because Barron County has, I think that we had 5 or 7 identified CAFOs, or large milking operations in the county or within the watershed. There's also, I heard for years that, all of the spreading of the turkey manure has contributed to the phosphorus and things like that. What we found out is that we're better off having those people put stuff on the land because they are so heavily regulated as to what they can put on the land. and they have to do the testing before and after and everything. It's just really interesting. It dispels some of the dated information, let's just call it that way, some of the dated information that may be out there. And he's certainly willing to come and talk, but,
He will be presenting at the Red Cedar Conference in March.
right,
Many reasons. You should come to the Red Cedar Conference in March. We're gonna have some public feedback sessions there as well. I didn't mention that while I was up there. So March 13th, I think, Thursday in March, it's out. If you haven't been to Red Cedar Conference, this is the great year for it.
yeah, and it's tailor-made to just regular people like us.
And you may want to repeat those dates for the people listening at home who wouldn't have heard any of that.
Oh, the Red Cedar Conference is March 13th at UW Stout. It is a very good water quality watershed focused on us at UW Stout. So, thank you. Anything else? Okay, moving on. Treasurer's report. Grant couldn't be here tonight because he's out of town for business. He provided a treasurer's report. That treasurer's report has, let me. We have the expenditures are of September. We had revenue from the town of Red Cedar. We had $1.14 in revenue from our dividends from savings. We had expenditures from the Colfax Messenger for meeting posting and U.S. Postal Service for mailings and for L&M mail and courier services. The bottom line is we have $9,064.79 in checking, and in savings, we have $1,132.56. If you ask any questions other than who got spent for what, I have no idea, but are there any other questions?
Excuse me. Make a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the treasurer's report. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion and action, committee reports. Tom gave his committee report. Are there any other committee reports discussions? Jim?
The boating and safety standing committee met. Don't go changing names of committees when I'm not here. You can do it while I'm here,
It was just a slip of the lip. I mean,
but I don't want to be in charge of every single ordinance we may come up with. Otherwise, I'm going to appoint Al Brown constable
oh, yeah.
for the Tainter Lake District. So
Pete's got a vest for me.
I'm sure, and a hat. And a taser, yeah, great. We actually got together, I think it was last week, right, Bob? Before the meeting, Bob and I actually went and inspected where the actual GPS coordinates are for the buoys, at least on the lower channel. And they're just oddball locations in that, so. We have a couple of questions for the DNR as far as if those coordinates have to remain, or whether we have to change that or adjust it, because like one of the coordinates, it's actually on the edge of the channel, not in the middle of it. So the ordinance, the draft ordinance has been submitted to the lawyer, Jim Crave, to review. He had a few questions for the DNR regarding some things that need to be in it. And just got that information of our DNR contact to pass on to Jim Craig. So the plan is hopefully to actually have the finalized ordinance to present to the November meeting and have it on the agenda to pass. In November, the plan is to go in front of the town of Menominee to rescind the existing ordinance that they are attached to for the town of Tainter, since it's a dual municipality ordinance currently.
Right.
So, when they were contacted, they, just like I thought, they said, what? We're part of what? So they'd be happy to not, be part of that. One of the things that we may need them to do, according to our legal eagle, is that they may have to, also, pass a resolution allowing us to pass our own ordinances.
Okay.
And that would also be the town of Tainter would have to do the same thing. So same thing that, when the ordinance was passed, it would need to be, the municipality that is more than 60% of the lake, which would be the town of Tainter, and then one additional municipality would have to sign off on our ability to create an ordinance. And at least that's the understanding that we have, at least talking to the lawyer. So the town of Tainter would both municipalities would have to repeal the existing ordinance and also grant us the right to create an ordinance. At least that's where we are as far as the legal process.
Okay.
And want to have that all straightened out. I know, Tom, after our meeting, you went to the town of Tainer's meeting. I don't know if you brought any of this stuff up to them.
I did, Jim. I don't think, though, at that time, I asked them to grant us the right to pass our own ordinance.
No, because I didn't
So
know this till this week, so.
So that is something I will, shoot Doris an email on tonight.
Oh, so are we on their agenda to repeal that?
I asked them to put us on the agenda and let them know that if they had any questions, we would be glad to come and answer them for them. Doris was not extremely confident that she could be ready at the meeting, which will take place on the 14th because of the election.
Yeah, and that's fine because our timing, we're doing well with timing for the ordinance to still have it in place and ready for basically this upcoming season, so.
They
So-
were also, go ahead, Al.
I was just gonna say, so if we pass our draft ordinance and make it what we have as an ordinance,
Mhm.
and we do that in November, then in December, we take it to the townships to do it, and that gives them a little bit of time to look at the ordinance and to be able to respond to it.
And that process can overlap in some ways because in the winter, there's nothing happening with buoys or
Right,
slow no wake zones.
right. And
Conceivably, well, we could, have a really warm winter and have open water, so.
I don't think it's gonna be that warm.
Yeah, so, some of that process can overlap. It's just the key that, having that completed ordinance, especially if it's passed by then, is gonna be better. Like the town of Menominee, they're mostly, they're going, again, what? They want to know what exactly, they're party to, so.
Right.
So they'll, having that completed ordinance will be will be good for that meeting and probably good for the town of Tainter too. And if it's not till December, that should be fine.
Okay, good, good.
When I discussed this with them, Jim, and I mentioned that Menominee would have to be involved as well. A couple of them came back at me and said, I think all 4 townships need to be involved. And I said, maybe, but I said, there's only 2 signatures on the original document, right? Yep, okay, so I had that part right.
Yeah.
So Doris was gonna check into it and
Well, it's my understanding that if you have multiple townships and they don't make up that 61%, all you have to do is get a township to go with the bigger township to make up that 60-some percent. And I'm assuming they just chose Menominee probably got on it and did it, and that's as far as they went. So,
Yeah, I think that, well, Bob was privy to that originally passing, and it just needed to be one additional town that touched the lake.
yeah, it was probably to make up that bigger percentage.
Yeah, and I think that it was also whoever was chair at the time was all in favor of it, so it was easiest to get it
Right.
through the town of Menominee.
Right, right. Okay, great.
But that's also the lawyers looking into all of, any of that type of stuff.
Okay.
So,
On the agenda tonight, under number 2, we have approval of the draft buoy ordinance. That will be, we'll take no action on that.
yeah, and does it say draft?
Well, approval of draft, right.
Because it would not be the draft, it would be the final, yeah.
Okay,
So I mean, the draft has already been shared with this board,
right.
before the public hearing,
And I think we already approved it.
yeah.
Okay.
So,
I'll take draft out and then it'll be approval of the ordinance.
Yeah.
For next month. We'll take no action on that. I don't want to table it because according to Robert's Rules of Order, if you table something, you can't get it back out. So
Mhm.
we will just not take action on it, at this time because it's not ready. Any other committee reports? Chuck?
I'm on the Water Quality Committee and we're in the recruitment process where we have 3 people recruited, invitations out to 2 more people. And running into a little problem once we get the people on the committee is we've got the elections coming up. So Tainter Town Hall is going to be booked up from like October 28th through November 11th. So if you or any of your committees are looking at going out there, you're probably not going to be able to get at Tainter Town Hall. One thing I'm going to ask my committee members to do is something brand new that's out on the DNR site. It's called Water Explorer. And long story short, you have to have a WAMS number and ID number and password, and you have to be able to get into SWIMS, which is Surface Water Integrated Systems. But once you're in there, you can pull up some crazy data. I mean, here I'm looking at, for one of my test sites, I pulled up the phosphorus levels from 1990 to 2024. And you can tell how our phosphorus is doing. And you can tell when we didn't have anybody doing testing. And I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. And it's called Water Explorer. And if you're interested in getting signed up for that, I can help you through the process. But I'm going to ask my people on the committee to sign up for that because, boy, you can pull up a lot of data.
Okay,
and Chuck, how many people are at your meetings typically?
Well, we haven't had any meetings yet.
Oh,
We had 4 on the weed committee. And right now I have 4 and I'm,
I mean, like, is it a big public number that shows up or not?
oh, that kind?
Yeah.
No, the most we've ever had.
So
2
for
or
a meeting
3.
space, we've been meeting in the back room at Jake's. And that works really well because
Okay,
it depends on when you guys are meeting, but we've been meeting like at 5 or sometimes 4. And there's usually nobody in that room at that point, in the dining room, in the back of the dining room, and sometimes it's actually even closed off. So it can be pretty private. We have anywhere from, I don't know, 3 to up to 10 people that are, participating like public in the meeting. And bonus is that you can order drinks and get food. So, and
I
you
go
can't do
heavy
that
on
in
the
the town
food.
hall. You just have to make a reservation on the Jake's website, a couple days ahead of time to make sure. But if it's, especially if it's in an hour, if it's at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, as long as it's not on a Tuesday when they're closed, that works great. It's worked great for our meetings.
Wow,
Except for when Pete leaves and he's ordered a glass of wine and then I ended up having to pay for it, so.
Thanks for that information.
Okay. Vegetation?
We're kind of at a standstill until permitting, which is after the first year, which will be handled by aquatic plant management. That's gonna cost $300, which we have in the budget,
Okay,
part of our project, and they're gonna pay it and
bill us.
bill us. And on Tuesday, I had a conversation with a local farmer who's agreed to take all the aquatic plants and has land within half a mile of the Elk Point ramp. So,
Perfect,
so we got a place to dump them.
great. I was worried about that within 5 miles part, that.
So-
Anyway, the
So I
good,
gotta track him, meet him in the spring and kind of mark up
finalize
the
it.
site
Right.
stuff, but
Good,
got a verbal agreement on that.
good. So what am I forgetting? Water quality, vegetation, sedimentation, the last one, the strategic planning. I have consulted, or I found a consultant. And, it's Renee Kantz from SEH. Okay, and she is sending us a contract for, the grant, okay, the grant writing to review our strategic plan and to be, technical advisor on that. As a side note, she was also instrumental in writing, Shatek's, aquatic, vegetation, management plan. Okay, so things are starting to line up with those things, and we talked a little bit about the grant writing process for, writing a grant for next year's surface water, grant cycle, for writing or getting that plan, put together. So I will have a contract, she's in the field right now. And so, she said she'd get a contract for me for, um, November. And so we can talk more as I see where that's coming. It's a foot in the door right now. The only thing we're committed to is the technical advice on the, strategic plan. All the other stuff is just kind of as we roll along.
So the strategic plan is ahead of the lake management plan as
Right.
well?
Right.
Okay.
The strategic plan, and that's where, my RFPs and things like that, I think people were thinking that I wanted a lake management plan for $4,000. Well, that's usually somewhere between $25,000 and $50,000, okay? But that strategic plan is for us, this board, to be able to align our work to set priorities as to where we're going. And obviously, some of our priorities, have come about, by need. Aquatic vegetation is one of those, is that the need, came before the plan, which is fine. I mean, that's the way plans work. But as we go along, it starts to set our priorities. So that technical, advice for this round is only for the strategic plan. But it establishes a relationship. But besides that, she works with the DNR and knows all those ins and outs and things like that. And that's what we were looking for. That's all I have to report. The approval of the, ordinance, the buoy ordinance, we will, not take any action on that because it is not ready. Email marketing platform. I sent out a comparison sheet to you. I've looked at it. Jim, I don't know if you want to weigh in on any of this. But this is a system to be able to manage email, communication, um, with our public. Again, one of the goals on our strategic plan, although it's in draft form, one of the goals was to increase communication with the public. Yeah, we have people that we've been collecting email addresses. We collected at the annual meeting. What we would be doing is, um, I'd like to see at least a quarterly update as to what the board's doing. The other thing is, we could send out agendas. If Menominee has it, you just subscribe to it. The Menominee School District has it, you just subscribe to it. Every time there's a new agenda, you get a notification that there's a new agenda. What we do then is we have people connect to our website, and we give them the information. All they have to do is to click on it. My criteria, the number one thing was ease of use. What I really want is something that is user-friendly and something that you don't have to be a technical wizard to use. The functionality would be to be able to connect it with our website, and somewhere down the road, if we want to get into Instagram and Facebook and all of that, we can connect to those. And the last piece was cost. And so using the basis of my research, I took it from the Forbes Business Advisor. They ranked a whole bunch of different ones, and then I took two or three, did some deep dives on their websites and everything else. In your packet, I gave a kind of a comparison that Forbes did. If you want to go and look at it on the Forbes website, you can. But the two that I did more research on, one was Brevo, and the other one was Zoho Campaigns. In a nutshell, I'm going to be recommending Brevo over Zoho. Zoho is cheaper. It's $4 a month. The reason why I'm recommending Brevo at $9 a month is the fact that they have customized campaigns, SMS, and other landing or other advanced systems. Besides that, they did a better job of selling on their website as to what it would do, and they gave examples of what it would do and things like that. So that's what I came up with. As I said in my my board packet, that I'm open for discussion. So
For how many users does Brevo allow? I don't see that on this, because that's a key thing.
6,000, I think,
Okay,
something like that. I can look that up.
it seemed really high. So if that's the case, that's a pretty good deal, though.
Yeah,
Because I know that like MailChimp, a lot of people use that, but they throttle the number of users. And I see that Zoho on here, it's like 2,000 mail contacts with theirs.
right.
So,
Or you can pay, and that was the one con against Zoho is it comes in cheaper, but it doesn't take you long to start to roll up in cost because as you start to add on.
yeah, and that's usually where it's the number of contacts. And, if we actually had every single potential, voter in this district to be 1,000 right off the bat.
Right.
And there's gonna be people who are on the email list who aren't voters, but still are gonna wanna get it. So it's easily gonna be, could get up to couple thousand email participants. So,
I was using the number, to start out with, Jim, of 2,000 contacts.
that Brevo had that?
No, in my mind, just to, um, using comparisons,
Yeah.
I was just thinking, to start out at 2,000. If we got more than 2,000, in 6 months, I'd be ecstatic.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing that I like too is they did Brevo did a better job of explaining their, subscribe and unsubscribe
Mm-hmm.
basis, that if you don't want it, and I think there's some regulation out there, that you have to have, people have to be able to opt out if they don't want it. It seems to me and you would know more about that than I do, Jim, but, that, um, we need to, that's something that we need to be aware of.
Yep, it's part of the Can-Spam Act, is that you have to give people an easy way to subscribe and unsubscribe to email lists.
Right.
And that's why specifically when we sign up people, you have to ask them. You can't just put them on a list because you have their email address. And any company, they have to have that, or they're not going to be an email marketing company. So,
Right. I'm looking right now for their starter, which is $8.08 a month. I'm not seeing the number of contacts.
yeah, that's going to be the key thing, because a lot of them will say how many you can send per month, and we're not going to send 9,000 emails a month. It's the
Okay.
number. Yeah, okay, they say up to
I-
2,000 contacts.
Right. Well, right. Marketing automation, that's the marketing automation. That if you go down to contact management, it has 500,000 contacts. If you go to their website and go
Yeah, that's
to
what I'm looking at.
pricing, and you go down to contact management. That's under the automation. Is the 2,000. And the other one was 500,000 contacts.
Yeah, there's a little bit of, because like they have their email marketing is one email a month to up to 2,500 contacts is actually free.
Right.
But what if you have 2 per month?
Well, and you only get 300 a day. And so if we had, what I was thinking, the reason why I went with the starter set was that if you had, let's say that we had 1,500 contacts, then it would take you 5 days at 300 a day to send it out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I want to work
No,
5 days to send out an email to everybody. I mean, I'm sure it's automated, but
yeah, for otherwise it seems like it should work.
they have templates, and for a year at $8 or $9 a month, that's what, $120? If it has your blessing.
Yeah.
Okay, How'd I do? Did I do okay on my research or?
Forbes did get okay for the research that you were able to borrow.
Well, why reinvent the wheel? You know what that's called, right? It's called swipe. Steal with integrity and purpose.
Yes.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to, for us to purchase, Brevo as our email
Marketing. tool.
marketing platform.
I'll second it.
There's been a motion and a second to approve Brevo as our marketing platform. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Adam, did you have anything you wanted to talk about with harvesting or the contract?
No, I think we,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, seems to me you said something at the last meeting, but that's okay.
not that I can think of.
Okay, the plan of work, I sent the plan of work out to everybody. What I'd really like to do is have the committee chairs on that plan of work give me some idea of what your immediate goals are. So that I can, take and make add it to the plan and make it part of our roadmap. So in other words, if, just let me know one or two of your committee goals, what your purpose is and what your goals are, so we can communicate that. Does that make sense? Doesn't have to be, I'm not looking for a thesis, I'm looking for maybe 2 or 3 bullet points. You know, and Chuck, like water quality, one goal would be to have a meeting to get up and started and identify the committee members and to, but I think also what's important with your committees is these standing committees. Jim, you have an advantage because you were already an existing committee. But kind of what you see as your next steps. And so I can put that in the plan. Tom, maybe your next steps. Adam, what you see is happening this year. And the reason why that's important is because as you meet, I would think that you'd want to use that as what you're communicating to your committee members. Is here's what we're trying to do this year. Here's what our goals are. And here's what, that way, we as board members, as I put that down, we all know what everybody else is doing and what their goals are. This can get out of control, I think, if we have committees that are working and nobody knows what you're doing. And so let's consolidate that, confine that so that when topics come up for discussion at the board meeting, we've all been, oh yeah, I've seen that before and those kinds of things. Does that make sense? It's a little extra work on your part, but it saves me trying to dictate to you what your committee is doing, because that's not the way it should be. You should do that. And if it's nothing more than just identifying your committee members and having a discussion and having 2 meetings to get it off the ground, that's fine. But I do think if you ask people to serve on a committee, 2 things they're gonna ask is, number 1, what are we gonna do? And number 2, how long is my sentence to this committee? And so you will want to be clear about that. And the more clear you are, I think the better your participation is going to be. The other thing I put down in there on that revised plan, and you notice I'm revising that plan every month that we get more stuff and I'm sending it out to you. I also, Lakes and Streams, Lakes and Rivers Conference is in Stevens Point. That's different than the Red Cedar Conference. The Lakes and Rivers Conference is in Stevens Point. I put the dates down. Hotel rooms go fast. If you're interested in going, I'd make a reservation for those nights or those 2 nights. Tom and I have, in the past, I've stayed. One year, Tom and I, we commuted daily back and forth. It's in Stevens Point. It's a 2 hour and 15-minute drive. It's, it's all 4-lane all the way there. You can commute on a daily basis, but board members, I would make a reservation and cancel it rather than wait, because last year I was about 1.5 miles down the road. And if you want to stay at the convention, if you don't care, it doesn't matter. You can go home, but sometimes it's easier just to go up and take an afternoon nap or something like that. When you get old, you gotta take a nap now and then. Anything else, on the plan of work that you want me to add? Everybody seems to be going good. Our committees are up and running, and moving along. It's good to see, and I think we're doing a good job. Next meeting is in November. I checked, it's before the,
21st,
it's before deer hunting,
should be the 21st.
right? So you guys can, those of you that hunt can come to the meeting and then leave on Friday. Because I believe the deer season starts the 23rd. So is there, I have on for potential November agenda items, the carp bounty and tournament is, we should be discussing that. So that we're ready for that in the spring. SEH contract for the consultant and, the final, draft or the final ordinance approval for the no wake buoys. Okay,
Slow, no wake.
slow no wake.
Pete Wetzel is very focused on the proper terminology.
Okay, slow no wake. All right, is there anything else you want added to the agenda?
Was SEH contract?
Yep,
Short Elliott Hendrickson, is that?
right,
Okay.
yep, they do a lot of stuff. And they're in Chippewa,
Yep.
so. Well, if you guys are all quiet, I'll take a motion to
I will
adjourn.
make a motion to
Do
adjourn.
we have a second?
Second.
All right, we're adjourned.
I want to point out, walleyes are biting right there,
Oh,
25 inches.
really? On Tainter. That's good, Jim.
He's been showing off for the last 10 days, all the
So-
walleyes
so-
he's catching.
So do you, put GPS coordinates with those walleye or, pictures or?